Hello everyone, and welcome to another episode of Comic Book Cove. I'm Tom Morris this week. I'm going first.
And I'm Josh Holderbaum.
And this is Lady Margot Elise. Episode 30, Josh, we've got past stories, current conclusions, and future adventures. Why? Because we get a little bit of past, present, wrapping up some story arcs, and we get a kind of a glimpse on what's going to go on in some titles, the Justice League and Detective Comics.
Yep, and a lot of insight into a lot of characters who we've seen, some of whom we've seen through this process, and some of whom we're just kind of being introduced to, since we only kind of saw them real briefly before, which is really nice.
Yes. What I like about this week is you just mentioned it. We see some of the inner workings of characters that we have seen, but now we get a whole new layer of why they do what they do, which I think was pretty cool. And in this episode of Comic Book Cove, we're going to discuss the following titles. Wonder Woman number 16, Red Hood and the Outlaws number 7, Supergirl number 6, Superwoman number 7, Action Comics number 973, Justice League of America Rebirth number 1, and Detective Comics number 950. And as always, spoilers ahead. Wonder Woman number 16, Godwatch Part 1. I will first admit that I am not the Wonder Woman expert. You are. Please enlighten me on what this Wonder Woman issue was. I know it was a backstory, but please explain it to me.
Yeah. This is a sort of a flashback tale to how the Godwatch organization was formed. We've seen Godwatch in the present day Wonder Woman stories as they're trying to track down Wonder Woman. They have Dr. Veronica Cale, who's kind of a classic Wonder Woman villain. She's was created back in the 90s, kind of to be like her Lex Luthor. She's, just an ordinary American businesswoman who holds a really severe grudge against Wonder Woman in the classic comics. In this, we get a lot of backstory on her, and in this, she's still very hostile to Wonder Woman.
In the 90s version, did they ever say why she was hostile?
I think it was more just kind of more like Luthor's resentment of Superman. It's that threatening, the threatening newcomer who's kind of changing the status quo.
Okay.
At least that's what I remember. I don't remember some of the more emotional aspects, because this backstory gives her kind of more of a tragic backstory, because her daughter Izzy gets kidnapped by Phobos and Deimos. Mm-hmm. They have her trapped in Tartarus, and her best friend, Adriana, who's a computer hacker or a computer programmer, gets turned, uses the Cyberwalker device, which essentially, I guess, sort of lets her kind of go anywhere using the World Wide Web, I guess. It isn't really explained how that works, but she ends up essentially dying in that. Mm-hmm. So now Veronica Cale has kind of two really personal reasons to not like Wonder Woman, and I think kind of by extension not to like gods in general.
Well, the Cyberwalker, it was just kind of like she was jacked in, and she was controlling the Cyberwalker from a distance, and once it was a prototype. Mm-hmm. That they made that clear at the very beginning, is they couldn't spend any more than a couple of minutes into it before it started to rewrite the human brain patterns. Mm-hmm. You knew there was going to be some issues there hey, I can't do this for more than 2 minutes or we're going to be pretty much scrambled eggs. Well, so what happens? The two gods, they're like, we got this, let's use a Cyberwalker. Yeah.
Yeah.
It was terrible.
Kind of forcing their hand onto some untested technology, which is kind of a sci-fi go-to device. Hey, let's use the thing that we're not supposed to use and hope that it works out. And it's also worth noting, too, we've seen Adriana in past Wonder Woman issues as Dr. Cyber, which is, in this iteration, Veronica Cale's sort of holographic assistant, so to speak.
Okay, yes.
We've seen her kind of floating around in the back, and I think she's only really been referred to as Cyber, or the Doctor. And classically, Dr. Cyber, I think, goes back to the 70s as a Wonder Woman villain. She used a lot of technology. I think she was a cyborg herself in those. She wore kind of a cool mask and this really funky, like, armored bodysuit and stuff. And this is kind of a cool modernization of that, because it was kind of a 70s villain. I mean,
Right.
very high tech, very very noticeable in a setting. This is almost kind of more like Jarvis from Iron Man.
Okay.
It's that sort of modern assistant character.
Yes.
It's a nice take on her.
Who are the gods Phobos and Deimos?
Phobos and Deimos go back to Greek mythology. They're Ares' two sons.
All right.
Phobos is the god of fear. Deimos is the god of hatred. And they're if you study astronomy, Mars is named for Ares. That's the Roman name for Mars. Mars has two moons, Phobos and Deimos.
Okay.
So they're his sons. They're twins in the comics. I think they had appeared. I think it was like Marv Wolfman and George Perez's series. They showed up in that too.
Okay.
And in this, they don't explicitly say they're working for Ares, but they definitely ask Veronica Cale to help them find Themyscira because we know Ares was looking for it
Yes.
not that many issues ago. He couldn't find it because it's not in
All right.
Wonder Woman's mind. So it makes it sound like they're still working for their dad.
Now that you've kind of explained it, it makes a lot more sense. I was reading it, just seeing Wonder Woman interacting and just being this ray of sunshine. A lot of people, Doctor was really hating on her.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Really. Oh. Whew.
Well, and it's funny too because one of the reasons she doesn't like her is because
Mm-hmm.
Wonder Woman kind of cites love so much that we
Yeah.
need to love each other and kind of respect each other more. And Dr. Cale says something like, "Love has never solved anything."
Exactly.
And it's also worth noting she has a daughter, and the dad's
Mm-hmm.
not there. And Izzy even mentions, "My mom says I don't have a dad."
Yep.
Or my dad never existed, or something like that.
What was the creature's name, the mythological creature that Wonder Woman had subdued and put in the zoo?
That's the Chimera.
Okay.
That is part lion, part goat, part snake.
Okay.
Varies as to exactly what the placement of those is, but usually there's a lion head, usually there's a goat head, and usually the tail ends in a snake.
Yep.
And that had been conjured by someone at the Smithsonian. I think Dr. Cyber said, and then they ended up putting it in the zoo, which
Yes.
was kind of awesome.
Right. Okay. Let's put a mythological creature in the zoo. Hopefully, we can control it.
Yeah, hopefully you know what to feed it too. I mean, what do you do for that?
I don't even want to know.
Yeah, I mean, don't take on an animal if you can't care for it, people.
Exactly.
And then to see Wonder Woman come in and be speaking to it like, "Hey, it's okay. I know it smells funny here. It smells funny to me too." It's really interesting.
Wonder Woman number 16 was another dual issue, past, present. I was interested in it. I'm glad Josh gave me more of an explanation because now I can start wrapping my head around some of these characters and some of the backstory makes a lot more sense. So thank you for that. And hopefully if you have any questions on Wonder Woman, because I know I do every time I read something about her past, I go to Josh, just drop us a line on Facebook or on YouTube. And that's Wonder Woman number 16. Red Hood and the Outlaws number 7. How do you solve a problem like Bizarro? It was cool in this issue that we get to see Bizarro's origin, backstory, and by definition, we get to see a little emotional, ethical dilemma within Jason Todd.
Yeah. It's neat to see not only really an origin for Bizarro, but also kind of into how he thinks.
Yes.
Because Bizarro is a character who we just think of as, oh, he's backwards. He just
Yes.
switches all of his verbs and says, I'm not here when he's actually here, and he's just kind of that funny villain that we always think of from the Silver Age. And in this, he's just really reimagined more as just an imperfect Superman.
Yes.
I mean, he's physically mature. He's not emotionally mature. He still has that tendency to kind of lash out, and he acts funny in the process, but he can do some scary things. And that's really neat to see. And this Bizarro, because apparently there have been a lot of other Bizarros, and they'd kind of done that before in some comics, this is the last Bizarro that LexCorp had created. And essentially they were all failures. Lex decided to get rid of them. And this one ended up not being destroyed and was found by the Black Mask.
Yes.
And was used, going to be his sort of secret weapon.
Very interesting when Jason Todd is talking to Artemis about Artemis hacked into LexCorp's network. I thought it was funny when she kind of said, yeah, whoever did this did a really great job, the computer program she used to hack.
Yeah.
Jason Todd, well, how do you know it wasn't me? Okay.
Yeah.
There was nothing really to be said, but he kind of knew.
Yeah.
And then they talk about, well, Bizarro might be just maybe he's too much to have around. If he lashes out and we can't control him, what do the citizens of the world, what happens? We kind of responsible. So it appears for a time that Jason Todd is going to take it upon himself to take Bizarro out of the picture. He goes to the Batcave, has a little heart-to-heart with Alfred, and I'll let you speak on that in a second. And he also says he takes a shard of kryptonite, is what we find out. But in the meantime, something happens at the Batcave that really resonates later on in the story.
Yeah, well, it's cool because Alfred meets him at the Batcave, and Alfred says something like, "Oh, funny how you always come in right when Master Bruce leaves," and Jason ends up asking Alfred because when he and Bizarro had their fight with the Red Hood, the Black Mask's henchman, too many colors and too many masks. It's starting to blur together. Is he saw kind of flashbacks to himself, sort of losing control as Robin. So he asks Alfred, did Batman ever consider firing me as Robin? I mean, taking me out of the program? Because he also kind of knows wasn't the perfect Robin. So he wonders, did Batman ever regret that? And Alfred says, no, none of us ever regretted having you here. I mean, he's still viewing himself as a work in progress hero. And that, I think that kind of comes true with Bizarro too, when they have their little heart-to-heart out in the, whatever that was, the lakeside they go to. And it's interesting too that Bizarro has Kal-El's memories. I mean, he remembers being sent from Krypton, and he remembers the Kents, and he remembers all this stuff. But then he also says, those aren't my memories. Those are someone else's memories put into me. So it makes him a much more complicated character.
It does. First, I want to go back to one of the reasons why Todd and Artemis were discussing what is ethically, what they are responsible for with Bizarro, was because Black Mask's henchmen, they had, or underlings, if you want to call them, they were fighting Bizarro. They bring out Killer Croc. And so Bizarro uses his cold vision to kind of freeze Killer Croc's head off and then knocks it off. We find out that it's nothing but a robot. But Red Hood was, hey, did you know that it was a robot before you went and froze its head and then knocked it off? And Bizarro kind of like, yeah, me no, but I don't think he truly knew. That's why they started the hunt for information on Bizarro. And then when we do get to the lakeside, and you, like you said, you talked about the memories. He was sharing that moment of he knows that he has rage, but he wants to be good, and he appreciates that Red Him, which what he calls Red Hood, Red Him and Red Her, Artemis, they have faith in him, and he will try to do better. All while he's saying that, Jason Todd has loaded up a gun with the kryptonite shard and was ready to put the kryptonite bullet in the guy's head. But listening to Bizarro talk, Jason, I think, felt there can be redemption for Bizarro, that he was never truly given a chance, that maybe if you had all this power and you're put under a microscope and all you are bred for is combat, that, hey, give this guy a chance to find out what he truly is.
It's sort of like if he is a child, he might be able to be taught how to be good. And it's worth knowing, too, I mean, having Superman's memories, that also kind of gives him a foundation for being a good guy. I mean, he's not just some crazy evil monster like kind of classic Bizarro. He has just sort of that backwards mentality that I'm a good person, I just might not know how to act in a good way.
Been taught to be good. Next issue we think might be something similar?
The teaser for the next issue said, who is Artemis? So it sounds like we're going to get a kind of maybe an Artemis feature on her and what makes her tick. Because that is kind of the theme of Red Hood's team, is they're heroes that are kind of work in progress.
Yes.
They're heroes trying to overcome their bad side, and especially their violent sides.
I think these next few issues are going to give us more insight on the characters and what makes the individual members tick. We've seen Bizarro, we've kind of seen glances into Red Hood, so I think we'll get a Red Hood proper. And next issue, like Josh said, we're going to find out who is Artemis. With that, we're going to take our first break, and when we come back, it's kind of the little Kryptonian feature of the program as we discuss Supergirl number 6, Superwoman number 7, and Action Comics number 973. We'll be back in just a moment.